Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to our Happy Strong Family podcast. We are here today with our guest sister, Hina Mirza. Hina Mirza has over 20 years of experience as a writer, public speaker, and community engagement expert. She has a master's in counseling psychology with a focus on Islamic counseling and is a registered psychotherapist in Ontario. She specializes in implementing a positive model for healthy families with emphasis on relationships, management, and supports individuals and couples who are struggling through emotional or behavior challenges. We'll hand it over to Sister Hina Mirza.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me today. I'm very excited about today's conversation. Much needed in the community, I think.
Yes, 100%. And I know right before this, I was telling you that I've been to quite a few of your talks, mashallah, and I've listened to you online.
Alhamdulillah.
And one of my favorite was in person when you had to come to UTSC.
Okay.
I must say this past year.
That's right. Yeah.
And I just got engaged at that time, and I was like, I have to come and see
MashaAllah,
what this is
mabruk.
about. Thank you. Yeah. So it's been really cool.
Yeah,
So,
no, alhamdulillah.
yeah.
I mean, anybody who knows anything about the work that I do knows that I am a huge, huge advocate for marriage education, whether it has to do with before you're getting married or before you're looking or once you're engaged and you're, setting up wedding dates,
Yeah.
or if you are married. I am heavily invested in the health of all relationships and marriages. And, that where you were at was the beginning of the life cycle. At that stage, we were talking about getting into that marriage mindset.
Exactly.
And it's so crucial because our community not only needs it, but I feel like it's almost a necessity. Like we're doing a huge disservice if we're not educating ourselves before getting married.
Exactly. And I think for today, it's more about like investing in the marriage even after.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I find that so interesting because it's like you think of like premarital counseling and all these situations of education as like you don't need to do anything in the middle. When you're married, you're just married. You're just
good.
together.
You're done. Check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So what's that concept to you, investing within the marriage?
So it's kind of like what I was talking about, the entire life cycle of your marriage and your relationship with somebody. You need to be aware of the fact that your relationship, your marriage, it's a living, breathing entity.
Mhm.
It's growing, it's changing. Marriages are very dynamic. And we know this because the life cycle or relationship consistently changes from, first, like the first couple of years of being newlywed, getting to know one another, early stage issues, challenges like adjustment issues, family, getting used to all the differences of cultures and within the homes, career, finances. So all of these like early marriage issues.
Yeah.
Then inshallah, may Allah bless all of our couples with healthy children, comes the early parenthood phase. And then it's almost as though you're getting to know your partner all over again. Everything that you knew about them, now you're getting to know them as a parent. So it's all this new learning that has to be done, and a new relationship has to forge, because as we already know, when people have children, all of a sudden it's all about the kids and the marriage goes on the back burner.
Exactly.
But the suffering of that is much later on, when you're no longer hands-on with the kids and you feel like you're just roommates or strangers.
Mhm.
So that phase of early parenthood, and then, raising your children through the school going era, what kind of academic path are you taking? Are you and your partner aligned on that? So all of that life cycle. And of course, mashallah, as the children grow older, so do other issues. You age, your income changes, your home changes, community changes. Everything needs to be taken into account. And if anyone out there thinks that if I took a pre-marriage course or if I read a couple of books, I'm done, I'm good, this is a huge wake-up call.
Yeah.
You absolutely cannot put your marriage on the back burner. You
Mhm.
can't.
Yeah, exactly. Especially through the different life changes. Because I feel like when it comes to like children rearing, that in this society especially, it's like that's such a huge
I think
task.
we're feeling the blowback
Yeah,
of this right now,
especially
that
these
as
days.
Muslim parents,
Yeah.
how do we navigate this sea of culture, and how do we navigate this sea of, how do we incorporate our faith and feel like instilling a sense of belonging in our children? But yeah, we'll save that for another podcast, inshallah. But definitely a huge handful when it comes to parenting challenges as a couple, and what impact that takes on the marriage.
Exactly. Yeah. I was reading this post yesterday, and it was really interesting to me because the girl was like, oh, if you've ever throughout your marriage, if you've ever felt like any year is hard, year 7. And I was like, year 7? By year 7, what happens? Like, that's so scary. And then the other was like, year 13, beware of year 13. I was like, that's an interesting concept that, like people are saying that, oh, within XYZ amount of years, these are the issues that are going to come up. So it's like,
Mhm.
how can you forecast that? How do you navigate that?
For starters, you can't. These are just numbers that people, individual experiences that may have
Yeah.
happened. But what I will tell you is why that prophecy of year
Yeah.
7, year 13,
Let's so curious about that.
because that is a time when couples have kind of established patterns in their life cycle.
Mhm.
So whether, who's the driving force in the relationship, who's the decision maker, what are their conflict patterns like? Are they both aggressors, or is there one who's the avoider, and so on and so forth. So those patterns are now so deeply rooted in the relationship that people usually find either burnt out, like they get burnt out by that time because how many times am I going to fight the same fight, or how many times am I going to go through the same stuff? So it's either burnout or it's just become too bland. And you're bored because nothing's different, nothing's new. The routine is so much. And I will say this though, your generation more than anyone is very highly at risk of this boredom phenomena, because and I don't mean to attack you personally,
Not attacking
but I'm
me.
just saying generally the culture is the scrolling culture, right? Like bored, flip, bored, flip, bored, flip.
Find something new, more
Find something
dopamine.
exciting, find something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the
Yeah.
dopamine hit. So whenever when we're dealing with younger couples, younger
Yeah.
marriages, the highest risk that we have is their lack of interest in wanting to stay and fix things, their lack of interest or desire to work through their problems, versus saying, yeah, you know what, it doesn't work. And the statement that I hear very often in the younger demographic is, I've done everything, nothing works, I'm out. But I'm talking specifically about people who are thinking of ending their relationships. I've tried everything, and I'm like, but you just showed up in therapy. How could you have said you tried everything? And then when you have a deeper conversation, you actually realize that it's not that they've tried everything. It's not that they've put, this couple has put work into their relationship. They don't have that resilience to be in a marriage. Marriages are hard. Marriages are hard work. There's a very trying relationship. It's a very testing relationship. But I will tell you this though, because I don't want to put people off on the idea of marriage, because you have to understand, anything in life that is worth investing in is going to be difficult. You want to buy stocks of good companies, you're going to have to put out good money. If you want that profit, if you want that benefit in dunya, you're going to have to invest high amounts. You're not going to yield benefit by just minimal effort. So for example, when we as Muslims, as believers, we look at our ultimate goal is to, inshallah, to get to Jannah. Do we get to Jannah by just sitting back and watching TV and scrolling through social media? No. That whole idea, that whole concept of, oh, it has to be easy, it will be easy. It will be a peaceful relationship. It will be a marriage that will give you half your deen. It will give you sakina. Your wife or your husband will be the coolness of your eyes. Inshallah, bi'idhnillah, it will all be there. But you gotta invest. You gotta put work into it. So that whole idea of, I want an easy ride, where does that work? You want righteous children, you've got to parent them well. You want to succeed in the workplace, you have to put hours, time, energy, and money. So just like that, your marriage is not any different. It's constantly changing. You got to keep up with the times. You got to keep up with it. And the second thing is, you have to be mentally checked in and invested that, yeah, I'm in this for my life. I'm here for good, but I'm going to continue to work on it, so that when you have that mindset, then you're running a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not like, oh, honeymoon phase, let's do everything, have a great time, spend a lot of money, do all this great fun stuff and create all these beautiful memories and albums of wonderful things that we did. And then 3 years later, you're sitting there twiddling your thumb saying, I don't know if I want to even be with this person.
Exactly.
So the mindset shift of investing your emotional energy, your physical energy, your mental energy, your spiritual energy, you have to be invested in the relationship.
Yeah. And going back to what you said about the boredom that hits, I feel like that is like, it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that we actually can see, especially like in dating culture and this kind of culture, that, okay, if it's not working out, go to the next person and try it out, so it's like even that concept of I'm just going to try and see.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to work for me, then I'm out. Then that it's like repeated.
Yeah.
It's like a pattern that gets repeated. And I feel like to go into a relationship thinking that, well, if this doesn't work, then, you know, it's okay. Which of course there's the different cases.
The backup plan.
Exactly. But to think that I'm going in with this in a mindset that, okay, I can just move back when I want to, it's unfair to yourself and to the other person to not actually put in that effort.
For sure.
And I think that's what investing is having that goal and mindset that I am here and I'm going to do my best. And I don't think it's like growth mindset where it's like, I don't think I'm going to ever need to step back. It's like putting in that effort.
And, you know, I want to build on this a little bit because, and I'm going to keep circling it back because we're Muslims, we're believers, we have Allah mindset, right? Like we're God-centric and we know that everything that we do revolves around what we already know, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already taught us about marriages and relationships and, you know, interactions with our spouse and interaction with our family members. You undoubtedly are going to be tested. Absolutely, you're going to be tested in the relationship. You're tested in every relationship as a parent, as a child, as a, you know, coworker, colleague, friend, sibling. We're constantly being tested by these relationships that we're in.
Yeah.
What makes you think that you're not going to be tested in your marriage?
Yeah.
Of course you are. But here's the thing. If you build on that growth mindset and if you say to yourself, okay, what do I need to learn? You know, how do I need to change? It's interesting. When I was driving over here, I was having this conversation with my husband and he was talking to me about marriages and, you know, just we're having this conversation about the podcast. And one of the things that we talked about, because he kind of reflected, he's like, you know, the number of times I've heard you speak, I've always heard you saying to people that if you're in a difficult situation, change yourself.
Yes.
And I think that is the crux of it all. You're in a tough situation when it comes to your relationship. The only person you have the ability to control is yourself. The only person that you have the ability to work on is yourself. And that's what I think that's what the big picture is about, you know, even in a relationship. And obviously, alhamdulillah, the hope is that both partners share that same vision that I have to work on myself. Because when you have two people who are committed to working on themselves, bettering themselves, bringing the best of themselves with ihsan and ikhlas to the relationship, that's what makes a good marriage. And on the flip side, when you see one person doing all this hard work and saying, okay, you know, I'm invested in my marriage and I'm going to read the books, take the courses, attend the seminars, you know what's going to happen? It's going to become lopsided. So you've got one partner far highly qualified to be married and educated to be in this relationship, and the other person is so far behind. And that's very high risk. So if you can really turn it around and say to yourself, hey, listen, whatever the challenges come in my relationship with my partner, the idea behind growth mindset is, what can I do to be a better spouse? And then of course your partner says the same thing. What can I do to be a better spouse? And two people who are committed will automatically lead to a inshallah healthier relationship.
That's so interesting about investing in yourself. When I was getting married, I remember writing like a 16-page list of all the qualities I want in my spouse. And then a year later, I'm like, I need to work on all
on
this.
myself. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
True.
And
absolutely.
It's like, because we're searching for all these qualities in someone else. And then we're actually
what
not
about
looking at
me?
Exactly, that question. This is interesting though. So you said that if two people who are committed, they come together, that's what would create a successful relationship. They're both investing. But what happens, like, is it always going to be failure when one person is investing? Because the idea is you focus on yourself. So if one person is saying, I'm focusing on myself, I would think, wouldn't that be enough to make the marriage work? That's what I'm wondering.
So I'll give you a good example to go with that. Do you drive?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So imagine the front two wheels of the car. One of the wheels is constantly maintained. You change it out winter, summer tires. You're checking the air of that tire. You're looking after it. You know, you're really investing in that wheel. But the other wheel, you're not filling up the air. So the air is leaking out from time to time. It's tattered, it's torn. You're driving it through all terrains, all seasons, not giving it the care that it needs.
Yeah.
Is the car going to drive well? No. Why not?
Because the other tire doesn't work.
The balance is off, right?
Exactly.
The balance is off. So just like that in a relationship, you just don't want to lose balance because, you know, same thing. One leg is healthy, the other leg is not. You're going to lose balance. In order to maintain balance in a relationship, both partners have to be involved in the growth and the development of their marriage. It can never be just the one, because that's when those lopsided distances become a lot, and that when it's too obvious, that's when you're going to notice people saying, oh, you know what, like this is nothing is going to change.
Exactly. Like there's no growth. I feel
No.
like to actually see growth in your marriage, you need to invest. And it's almost like if you don't want to see growth, then both people aren't investing, you're not going to see
And
anything.
people become very complacent. You know, when
Yeah.
you're married to somebody and things are going well, oh my goodness, wow, people are like, yeah, okay, I'm done. You know, I'm in a good relationship. And subhanAllah, I've had couples come in at the year 10, 12, you know, like a mature marriage, like an older relationship, come in and say, I don't know what's happening. You know, it's just like, we're just not the same anymore. He's changed, she's changed. And all of this, like this chaos of like, what happened to us? Well, because you put it on the back burner and your lives continue, because life isn't stopping for you. So if you're not constantly eyes on my relationship, and you know, I mean, I don't want this to come off to anybody as like, oh my God, like hours of work. No, it's about fine tuning it. Once you're educated about your relationship, it's so much more easier to stay on track versus somebody who has no pre-marriage education and whatnot. And keeping the health of the relationship alive is so much more easier for two people who share that same language. You know, they've been through pre-marriage counseling, they've been through early years counseling, or they've done compatibility counseling, whatever. You know, they've read those books, attended those courses and seminars. They share a language, and that's the foundation that their relationship is built on. And so even though years will pass, they will know, oh, okay, you know what? I'm being complacent about my relationship.
Okay. So what I'm understanding is it is the pre-work that actually does help for the investment long-term as well.
I mean, if there's anybody out there who's getting married in this day and age and not taking a pre-marriage or early marriage course, so you can even take it a year into it, like in your first, even first couple of years of marriage, but I would highly recommend the first year of marriage. If you're not educating yourself, you're setting yourself for failure. What was that? I was gonna say you're setting yourself up for failure, but then I just thought of that thing that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Yes. So exactly that. Like, I mean, as I said, from my perspective, I just don't understand when couples will invest thousands in their marriage.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me.
Nobody's looking at you. Nobody's judging. But I know, but it's not just you.
Or
The
on their
wedding
wedding.
industry,
Exactly.
the wedding industry has almost like, we've really put pressure on couples getting married to create this day or this idea. It's just one day.
And the funniest thing is, what I find is that people, the investment is like thousands of dollars, and then it's like, do you want to go for $100 counseling? No, that's so expensive. It's like, what?
No, we can't afford it.
It's like, what? How?
And that
it's priorities, right?
That idea has to change. Especially because, you know, now more than ever, couples are being put under so much stress. Like now more than ever, everything about our culture is so stressful that if we're not doing justice to our relationship, then, you know, I mean, people will come into counseling when it's too little too late. So much emotional injury, so much damage has been done to the marriage. And I mean, I'll hear them saying in therapy, we came here as our last resort. And I'm like, but why didn't you come here as your first resort? Had you come here as your first resort, there's so much that could have been done to help realign the relationship and realign the emotions in the marriage and help you overcome conflict and, you know, build that connection. But if you've created so much garbage in your marriage, you know, you've dumped so much garbage into your relationship, it's raw, it's broken, it's falling apart, and then you're coming to a therapist and saying, fix it. Nobody can. Nobody's a miracle worker. Inshallah, may Allah fix it. But the earlier, the better. And I think it's, you know, a lot of people talk about this, that most couples actually seek help 6 years too late. If we can just change that mindset, specifically for our Muslim couples, you know, like, I mean, marriage is such a source of barakah for us. There's so much blessing in this relationship for us. So if we can just change that mindset of Muslim couples and encourage them to get help early, to get educated early, and continue to stay invested, it's a game changer.
I really like that concept of getting help. I feel like we all need help. Like, we actually do. We don't know anything. I don't know anything about being married. Like, it's an easy process, right? But you just done. But it's like, really, what do we know about marriage? We all are in a need of help. Like, every single person, I think.
Absolutely.
Whether you're not even married yet, it's like, okay, you still need to do that. I feel like there's probably so many people out there who are watching who are just like, oh wait, but I didn't go to premarital counseling and I'm like 10 years, 5 years into my relationship. What do I do now? What would you say to someone who's at that position?
So I'm going to give two different messages. Okay. There's couples out there that are going through crisis right now.
Yeah.
And they are deeply in need of counseling. If you're not happy in your relationship, even a little bit, okay, even a little bit, because sometimes we're like, oh, all right, you know, it's okay. It's okay. It's like not too bad.
Yeah.
Even if you're a little unhappy, seek help immediately. Go to therapy. It's from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to educate ourselves, to seek help when we need it. I know that in our culture, sometimes we feel like, oh, I can't talk about my spouse and it's, you know, that's not okay. We're like a garment for one another and I don't want to share my personal problems. But you have to understand that when you're going to a therapist, you're not having coffee with a friend.
Yeah.
This person is trained professionally. Alhamdulillah, so many of us in the community also have this deep-rooted understanding of Islamic ideology behind marriage. And, you know, we have such a deeper understanding and appreciation of Islam and the faith and what it comprises of. When you go to a therapist, they're not gossiping with you. They're not talking about, oh, so tell me, what did he say or what did he do? You're not exposing. Yeah, you're not exposing your partner.
Yeah.
You're going there for actual nasiha. You're going there for help. And a good therapist is going to help you navigate your problems and give you that opportunity to be in a healthier place versus you not getting any help at all. Exactly. And somehow, you know, I mean, I know that this is going to be a bit controversial to share, but I'm going to say it because I believe in it so strongly. A lot of people feel like, oh, we should go to our parents for help. Yeah. Or we should go to, like, you know, my khala or my pupo. Like, let's go to my own relatives for help because my aunts and uncles or my cousin or my, you know, my parents or my siblings are going to be able to provide help. And so, right? Maybe they are. Yeah. Maybe they are. But the problem is that we, at this stage, in this time that we're living in, you don't know if there is a bias or not.
Exactly.
And even even if there's not, let's say that this person is pure of heart and very, very sincere. The problem is that you might discuss these issues, but now that person will always know, you know, at family gatherings, at family dinners. So, you know, when it says that always, you can always turn to like your people, like your relatives for help. Think of your therapist as the extension to that, like, you know, the professionals in the field who are going to serve as neutral parties because you don't really know if your relatives are genuinely going to be neutral or stay neutral. Yeah. So your therapist's job is to help you navigate through your marriage challenges, give you the tools, the necessary tools to maintain that healthy relationship, to overcome your challenges. And then inshallah, you are, you know, you're in a completely different relationship because you went and you sought out help. Yeah. So people who, you know, anybody who's listening, who's going through marriage problems, get help first. Now, here's the interesting part, because you were asking me, you know, what do people do if they never got pre-marriage counseling? What do they do now? Yeah. If you're married and your marriage is good or great or healthy or, you know, amazing, go learn. Go learn about your relationship next steps. Plan things for your future together. Understand your partner, because subhanAllah, one of the biggest risks that I've seen with relationships where people are the complacency, right? Everything is good. We're good. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, we're good. We're happy. We go out for dinner once a week. You know, we sit, we have family time. I love her. She loves me. You know, everything is great. That complacency phase. The problem is that a lot of these couples, they don't really realize what's actually going on in their partner's heart. So a lot of the things have not been said or not been spoken, but we've just kind of started brushing things under the rug. But we all know what happens when we start ignoring the little things, that eventually they add up. So tune up your marriage. You know, there's, mashallah, so much material out there, so many organizations that are doing beautiful work for the sake of marriage, because we all know, you know, every single one of us who is in the field of helping, we all know how important marriage is. It's the foundation of our entire ummah. Yeah. All like our families, our communities, we're all hinging on this one relationship between a man and a wife in the home as husband and wife. It all boils down to this relationship. So now imagine, subhanAllah, so much is based out of this one relationship. Why aren't you taking better care of it? So whatever stage you're at, you know, if you're in crisis, go to a counselor, seek help, find therapy. If you're doing well, you're comfortable, continue to educate yourself so that, you know, there's no brushing under the rug. We're actually addressing and openly talking about issues and fears so that we're being able to maintain our marriage.
I really like the concept of like learning about each other, because I think we did make a joke about it that, oh, people can afford weddings and
Yeah.
not premarital, but maybe there's someone who genuinely it's not part of their
Yeah.
budget. Like it's something that, okay, this is not
Yeah,
something I'm able to do.
alhamdulillah.
So it's like that second part of learn about each other
Yeah.
even and like grow in that. And I feel like there's a lot of resources out there,
Yeah,
100% on the internet of like how can you learn about each other more, all these different ways.
And I'm actually going to go out there as much
Yeah.
as say to you that, you know, not educating yourself is not an option. If it's not in your budget to do a whole pre-marriage counseling course or to see a therapist for pre-marriage counseling, if you can't afford it or if it's not in your budget, you can take shorter courses that are just available online that are not interactive, like you're not speaking to anybody,
Yeah.
but you're just receiving information one way. If you can't afford to get an online course, go to various online portals. There are so many videos out there. There's so much content out there. I think like in this day and age, there's no excuse for somebody to say, you know, and financial like capacity, that's not an excuse. That's just that. I think for me, that's a red flag. Like if somebody says, oh, I absolutely cannot educate myself for marriage. I can't afford it. I can't, you know, enroll in a course. I can't watch some videos, or I can't watch like, you know, tips and tricks of how to navigate your first year of marriage. Like if somebody is that resistant to getting help, there's a red flag right there. That's
Because
dangerous.
The problem is prioritizing.
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt with a PSA that I usually put out at this point.
Yeah.
I obviously respecting Sister Hina probably can't say it because of rules and regulations, but I can. Like what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the help that Sister Hina is talking about is actually covered by people's private insurances if they work for corporations and stuff. So I encourage everyone to check their insurance coverage. If you have a benefit that's sitting there, why let it go to waste, right? Why aren't you using it? Like these insurance companies are not billions of dollars quarterly profits for no reason. So instead of putting that into their bank accounts, into their profit line, let's invest it into Muslim educators and professionals that are available to help.
Inshallah. No, and well said. Thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of registered psychotherapists are covered by extended benefits, and people can come in for personal counseling and take advantage of those benefits, inshallah, and really invest in themselves. So yeah, for those people who have benefits, that's a huge advantage. But again, not an excuse. Like finances is not an excuse to not invest.
And the second thing I want to sort of add was when Sister Hina was talking about, you know, reaching out to your aunts, uncles, parents for help. Alhamdulillah, that's all good. That's all, you know, you need your support systems in place. But you know, I'm getting in that phase of life where people are now reaching out to me for help, right? And the younger generation. And I learned a lot from my mother because she used to consult with a lot of people and people used to reach out to her. I think on the other side of things, like we got to recognize that helping does not mean you're responsible for fixing the problem. Helping means you're there to support them, tell them that you love them, you're there for them, but you need to know your lane and your boundaries. And part of helping is encouraging people to seek help from professionals that can help. You're not responsible for solving the problem because they're reaching for help. They're just looking for support, right? For that love, for that kindness. But then encouraging people to seek that help, I think is a good, important.
And it's such an important doors open. It's such an important way to open those doors. When a couple is in the midst of conflict or challenges, it's not black and white, you know, it's not like, okay, this is a problem, that's a problem. Sometimes things very subtly just add up and you do feel overwhelmed by the whole magnitude of everything that you're experiencing. So yeah, absolutely. You know, having a family member just pointing you in the right direction, giving you that support, but there's different tiers to it, right? Like sometimes you can just speak to a sibling or a loved one or a family member, and they can sincerely, genuinely just give you the support that you need. So everybody just has to kind of gauge what level of help do I need? Again, you know, I'm always going to say start therapy early. It's better for you to go into therapy for a couple of sessions and the therapist to say, yeah, you know, alhamdulillah, everything looks like you guys are aligned. My doors are always open. You can always come back whenever, you know, you feel like you're feeling challenged. And that relationship that you build in therapy actually kind of motivates you. Then you're like, oh, okay, we can fix our problems. Like we do have the ability to talk it out and figure it out. It's super motivating for them as well.
I really appreciate how you said it's a relationship you build with the therapist, because I feel like if you can look at it as this is a relationship I have with someone, then you can see them as someone you can go to for help. But I think if you just think of it as like a faraway concept and I'm going to use it when my parents and my siblings and my aunts and uncles have done their best and they can't help anymore, then that's where it's a problem, because you never see it as someone who's there to actually support you and help. Also, I feel like that's a really good distinction that you guys have helped me think of, that, okay, wait, this is like a relationship.
Your therapist is definitely a big part of your life and the processes that you go through. through.
Yeah.
So for sure, like, and you have to have a good relationship with your therapist in order for you to make progress. If you don't like your therapist, you're not going to make
Yeah.
progress in any of the behavioral work that you're doing, right? Like, it's just,
Exactly, yeah.
there's always going to be that roadblock, because sometimes you're not going to look forward to therapy, or you're going to walk out and you're going to be like, oh, I don't know why I come here. So the first thing is just, when we go to school to learn about psychology, one of the most important things that we talk about is that therapeutic alliance.
Mhm.
You have to build that relationship with your client so that they feel like they can trust you, and they see this space as a safe space for growth and development for themselves. So that
Exactly.
emphasis is so huge.
Exactly. I know, Brother Gash, if we had a few questions come in.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. So we do have a few questions. So let me get them on the screen here. So the first question we touched upon a lot was sort of, how can an individual handle a situation if their spouse is not interested in pursuing marriage, education, and counseling? But maybe what are some tips that, like, how can you approach your spouse if your spouse is not pushing back? What's some things that might work? Because
Yeah.
it could turn out into a huge fight potentially, right? But what are just some tips on how to approach your spouse with
So
this
I'm
idea?
going to say, be proactive rather than reactive. When you're getting married, always make sure that your partner is open to the idea of counseling. These are probably one of the earlier questions that you want to bring up, that, hey, if we get in if we're facing challenges, are you open to going into counseling? That beautiful doors open to that is just, hey, how do you feel about pre-marriage counseling? I mean, I've heard that there's a lot of stuff out there. I'd love for us to check it out to see how we can start our relationship off right. So if you're in a relationship or you're looking to get married to somebody who is not open to that idea, red flag right there. Okay. Because if they're not open to that idea, what are you going to do when you run into crisis? There's a funny quote that I have up in my office that says, people who are in therapy are there because of the people who don't come to therapy. And I can tell you that it is so difficult, whether it is your spouse or your parent or your child or anybody, any relationship out there. If if somebody's resistant to coming into therapy, especially in marriage, it makes it so, that's the wheel example I was giving you. It makes a relationship very lopsided. But my quick tips and my quick advice to somebody who is in that type of relationship, and perhaps, alhamdulillah, already married and never went to pre-marriage counseling, introduce it with humility and softness. It's not a good idea to say to your partner, you're crazy, you need help. Don't do that, because you're not gonna make much progress. So just approach it with humility and kindness, and make it a we thing. I think we could use a little bit of help. How do you feel about us learning more about our relationship? What are the ways that, and sometimes take it upon yourself. I know that we're in this situation, or I know that we're facing some challenges, or I feel like we're kind of becoming complacent. What are ways that I can be a better partner to you? And so now all of a sudden there's this huge shift. Your partner is not feeling defensive anymore. They're not thinking like, oh, you don't like me anymore. That's not the criteria. It's like, I want us to grow together. I want us to learn. But hey, guess what? I want to change. I want to get better. I want to be the person that makes you happy or happiest. And so when that language change, when you change the way that you approach the idea of counseling, sometimes that's a good doors open. But that's by no means does it mean it's a guarantee. SubhanAllah, there are so many relationships out there that are struggling because one partner is ready and willing to get help, whereas the other person just feels like there isn't any need. And for that, lots and lots of dua, give sadaqah, and just slowly try to approach it with better language, where it's, you're trying to be more humble and encouraging them to get help versus shaming them and making them feel like they're being blamed for something.
Exactly. And also the team part, that, I actually there's a percentage of what I'm doing that's having an impact on this. So having humility for education is like the number one. I was just like, yesterday, my little sister, for almost years later, I was like, you know what? You cook great. I'm not the best cook. I need your help. And that opened up such a huge door for us to be working together, to cook together, because before that, I was super, no, I can try my best and I'm going to do my own thing. And I wasn't seeking her help. But when you actually humble yourself and you're like, you know what? I need to be educated. I'm not like, this is also my problem. Then that's what kind of like helps lead it forward. So with couples, it's like you going to your to your like spouse and say, actually, we need help. I also need to be educated. That's very humbling.
Yeah,
so that's very
absolutely.
important.
Absolutely.
Good. Jazakallah khair. The next question we have here was, the previous elder generation often does not support or makes it difficult for younger generation to pursue marriage, parenting, mental health related education, how to deal with parents that mock or are unsupportive of me pursuing these resources.
Okay, well, I'll make it easy.
I mean,
So I think the trajectory is definitely upward.
yeah.
I think the Muslim community has started talking a lot more about mental health in the past few years. I have been to numerous khutbas where the imam will discuss mental health or the need for counseling very openly. And I think that, as a therapist or a professional in the field, I have a lot of gratitude for that, because that has definitely helped break the stigma.
Exactly.
It definitely has. So we're definitely heading in the right direction, but that doesn't mean that every single person has a supportive parent who's encouraging them to get counseling or pre-marriage counseling. Sometimes people see it as offensive. You think there's something wrong, or it can be viewed very differently. The short answer to this is that if you're old enough to get married, you're old enough to make decisions to get therapy. And
Yeah.
your mental health is part of your overall holistic health approach. And Allah wants you to be healthy. Allah does not want you to suffer. We do not come from a deen, or we don't come from a faith where we think that we are meant to suffer. We're not. Suffering is your challenges, and your tests are meant for you to grow from. So if you are struggling and your mental health is struggling, you have every right to seek help. Now, does that mean that it is to disrespect your parents and to tell them off about it? No, absolutely not. Counseling in Canada and North America is privileged in the sense that there's confidentiality clauses, so nobody's going to know. Your therapist is not going to be posting on social media, new client, tagging you. That's not how it's going to happen. So if you feel the need that you need help, and if you've identified that you've got your own struggles, or you're looking to get married and you want that pre-marriage counseling and your parents are not supportive, make those decisions for yourself. And inshallah, you have a partner that aligns with those goals with you. But again, it's okay to go get help, even if mom and dad are not okay with it, and I'll make it very simple. You break your arm and your parents say, oh, there's no need to go to the hospital, just wrap it up at home. Are you going to listen to them? No, your arm is broken. You're going to go seek medical attention. So if there's a mental health concern, or if it's a proactive thing that you want to work on your relationship or be ready for marriage, absolutely go seek the help and make dua for your parents, because they are definitely doing the best that they can do based on what they know. So we don't, we're not looking down upon them or being disrespectful to them, but inshallah, make decisions that are bi'idhnillah, that are better for you.
Jazakallah khair. So the next question, we sort of talked about it a little bit, was, I feel as though nothing we do as a couple will matter, as the root cause is not between us, but rather due to external parties, spouses, parents. Is there any point to us pursuing help as a couple if it's very unlikely the people around us will change?
Oh, this is deep. Oh my.
The people around you will not change. Remember that quote? People are in therapy because of the people that don't come to therapy. Yeah. Okay. You're not going to change your parents. You're not going to change your in-laws. You don't have the capacity to change your neighbor, your neighbor's behavior. We don't have the capacity to change or influence other people. What we do have capacity is to learn how to navigate those challenges as individuals. And then of course, in our marriages, we learn to navigate them as couples. I can assure you that majority of your problems in a healthy marriage, majority of the problems are external. They're not from what is happening within the relationship itself. People could be very much in love, very well connected, have wonderful communication. All of that could be present, but the relationship is still feeling stressed because of external sources. The idea is not how are we going to solve the problem? The idea should be how are we going to navigate through this challenge? So if it is parents or external stressors that are causing problems for the relationship, you're going to get help to understand, well, how can I make this easier for myself? Or what are the ways that we can do? And there's so many ways we don't realize. We feel like, oh, well, I live with my in-laws, or my mother-in-law's like this, or my father-in-law's like that, or my sister-in-law. Don't worry about it. These relationships were from Allah. They were sent to you from Allah. There was a reason, there was a purpose. But counseling and therapy is going to help you set appropriate boundaries. Sometimes those boundaries will be visible boundaries where your actions and behaviors will change. And sometimes those boundaries will be mental and emotional, where the way you view the situation will change. And when I talk about, to people, like when there's an emotional disability in somebody, just understanding their limitation actually just changes so much perspective. So no, absolutely not. Like, if you feel like, hey, the problems are external and therapy is not going to be helpful, it is. Of course it's going to be helpful because it's going to help you navigate your circumstances better. And then obviously when you're navigating your circumstances better, then the relationship isn't under threat, because even external sources over time will erode away at that relationship dynamic.
When it comes to boundaries, I know something that I hear often is, make sure like from the start you set up everything exactly how you want it, because you're not going to be able to change things 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line. It's so scary to hear that, because it's like, what? Like, this is it? Like, I only have one chance at,
That's
like
it.
communicating how I feel and like
Yeah.
all these things. So
Yeah.
what would you say to that? Like, how does setting boundaries work in long-term like relationships with outside influences?
So whole other podcast if we want to talk about boundaries.
Yeah.
But I think you're on the right track. It's always better to set good boundaries and then become flexible later, because the other way around doesn't go as smoothly. If if you have no boundaries in the beginning and then you try to put up boundaries, it actually challenges the patterns of that relationship, or like the culture of the home, because people are not used to you, or the way that you are now. It's important for everybody to have boundaries.
Yeah.
I need to have boundaries with my children. I need to have boundaries with my partner. I need to have boundaries with myself even, right? Like I need to know what is healthy when I'm interacting with any relationship.
Mhm.
But here's a good change of perspective, because sometimes people feel like setting a boundary means you're trying to keep people outside.
Yeah.
You're trying to protect yourself, so you're trying to keep people out. What if I said to you that setting a boundary is actually meant to keep people in your life? Because without those boundaries, that relationship would suffer a lot more and a lot faster. But if you had boundaries in the beginning, or if you have boundaries with somebody today, that's actually protecting both you and them. There's a really beautiful quote by Brene Brown that I love. I don't know if I can remember it. I don't know if I can do justice to it right now, but it goes something like, healthy boundaries are a way to love someone else and yourself at the same time.
That's beautiful.
So that beautiful distance that I
Mhm.
love myself enough to value myself, respect myself, but I also love you. I should have said, and I also love you and I respect you. And that halfway point, that's where the boundary is at.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. We got one more question here that we will ask, and let me get it on the screen.
That's a long one.
Yeah, it's a long one. It's related a bit to what, and obviously I should have prefaced this with, some of these questions probably require more deeper understanding and context. Exactly. For everyone
I'll
asking
sign a
these.
6 podcast contract today.
Perfect. I'm down.
But
No, we're kidding. We don't sign contracts.
we'll actually provide Sister Hina's contact information also, if you did want. I don't know if you're taking new clients or not, but
From time to time,
okay,
yeah.
so-
Alhamdulillah.
But inshallah, the question is, I am of the mindset that we should learn from the mistakes of our parents and to potentially break any negative cycles. But to my spouse, any comment or observation about their parents is seen as a highly disrespectful. My intent is to be aware so we avoid the same mistakes. What is the productive way to approach this without seeming disrespectful?
I can answer that in 2 words.
Mhm.
Language matters. Just like we were talking previously about getting your spouse interested in coming into counseling if they're not, it's the way that you're going to approach it that's going to be the game changer. If you're going to walk into a conflict with your partner or a situation with your partner and say, your mother always does this, or your father said that, or your sister, or anything like that, when you're going to come in attack mode, the other person is automatically going to become defensive.
Mhm.
There is no other. We would too. If anybody came and started attacking my family, of course I'm going to defend them. So the idea here is the language that you use that's going to change the perspective of your partner. Yes, absolutely. Your family of origin, your parents, your siblings, all of them have an influence on the relationship. And sometimes it's their behaviors that are the creators of that problem. But when you recognize that, okay, so for example, you see that there's a specific person in the family that is creating the problem, being able to have an honest conversation with your partner and say, again, you've heard that statement, don't blame the person, blame the problem.
Yeah.
So you don't want to frame it as your mother does this. You want to focus on the problem. It's sometimes I find it difficult to go upstairs and use the kitchen because of the way things are set up in the house. So you're not bringing the mom into it. I'm just talking about a domestic issue for people who actually co-live, like they live with their in-laws. But you just want to focus on what the problem is. And so when you take the names out of it and you just focus on what the issues are, your partner is more open to listening and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that, again, and I know I'm going to sound like a little bit of a broken record, but I really hope that this really hits it home. In early stages, when you're doing that pre-marriage counseling, when you're talking in your early marriage with your partner about potential things that are at risk or might be a risky thing in the relationship, that's doors open for creating safety, that we can talk about big issues in a respectful, meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
And we our goal is to fix the problem.
Yeah.
You said that you were there at the Marriage Matters event that I
Yes.
did. Oh, no, sorry. It was a Marriage Mindset, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right. One of the things that I mentioned there was, and I don't know if you recall this, is that I asked the attendees to identify challenges that already existed. If your mom is a tough person, you already know this. If you find her tough, of course your partner's going to find her tough. If you know that your dad is a certain way with money, and I know I'm doing these cliched examples, but you get the point, right? Like if you know that there's a pre-existing problem that is in your home, you don't have to cover that up. You don't have to defend and hide it that, I'm never going to tell my partner about this. No, if they are that intimately connected to your family, they will find out. So if there is a pre-existing problem, come into it with that mindset that I need to be able to manage this better because it's not going to go away. And that's all that it is, really. Quite frankly, it's just about managing situations. When it comes to parents, for God's sakes, of course you're not going to agree with your in-laws all the time.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with Muslim culture. It has nothing to do with faith or anything. Universally, you go to any part of the world, whether it's North America or any other part of the world, that in-law relationship, it's always a little bit like, okay, it already sounds like trouble. So when you understand that these are pre-existing challenges, be on the side of your partner to help them overcome things rather than them coming to you and saying, so-and-so has an anger issue, or so-and-so is disrespectful, or so-and-so doesn't, knock on the door when they walk in. You already know this about your family, so don't put your partner in a situation where they struggle. But for the partner, what the question was specifically asking was, how do you approach things with about the parent without being disrespectful? Your language matters. The way you choose to bring up the subject, the way that you, whether you're blaming the person or whether you're talking about the problem, these things make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it for the audience questions for this episode. But I actually went back and I pulled one from a few episodes ago that I think would be interesting to get. Inshallah, we could benefit with your experience on it.
Yeah.
This actually came in a few episodes ago, and the question was saying, and is talking. You guys were talking before about relationship with your therapist and how important this is.
Yeah.
So my husband sees a female therapist has benefited a lot, alhamdulillah. At times I get jealous and feel like he's more connected to her than me. He should be seeing a male, I think, due to the personal connection that can't be avoided. He disagrees. What is your professional opinion on different gender therapists?
What's my professional opinion? I can actually answer this question from my own personal experience. When I was studying Islamic counseling outside of my degree in my master's, there's a lot of steps that we have to take to maintain that professional environment. So for example, the door is never fully closed. Like my male clients who are coming in by themselves, they understand that the door will always remain a little open just to, respect those Islamic etiquettes, Islamic guidelines. The content of our conversation follows the Islamic etiquette of modesty. So any content that is sexual in nature, any content that is, that doesn't serve a cognitive or behavioral purpose, I will make that referral and I will tell that male client that, hey, maybe I'm not the best person to have this conversation with. I can always make a referral to somebody else and so on and so forth. So the bottom line being that the content has to be kept halal. The conversation. Now, the reason why I say this is because, mashallah, there are a lot of wonderful brothers in the community who are just as qualified and able to provide that service. So, for example, if you had asked me this question 7 years ago, I would have actually answered it very differently. 8 years ago, 7 years ago, when I first started my own practice, there weren't that many people out there. And so if a male client came to see me, maybe he came to see me out of desperation because there really wasn't a male therapist to go to. Understandable, because there's definitely more women in the field than there are men. But nowadays you are spoiled for choice. There are opportunities. And to this, to the wife, I just, from a therapist's perspective, I can assure you that living in Canada, we've got a lot of guidelines that we follow, and we have to absolutely ensure that that client-counselor relationship follows a lot of ethical boundaries. But outside of that, as Muslims, that's our core belief. That's the core orientation of how we interact. Most female psychotherapists will be very mindful of that relationship dynamic. But if it's something that's making you uncomfortable, it's definitely warrants you talking to your husband about it and saying that perhaps he can transition into some other therapist. What I feel might have happened is that he may have started seeing a female counselor because a male wasn't available or accessible. And now that, again, that therapeutic alliance is still built, you're like, I can't start over and, start sharing my story. So maybe it's very genuine, that the reason why he wants to stay. But yeah, for sure, if he's not, if it's the topic of conversation doesn't make you uncomfortable, I would let it go. I would really, if he's just going there for depression or anxiety or anger or emotional overwhelm, I think it's okay. But and again, it's my own personal opinion, but if the content is more intimate in nature, maybe perhaps it warrants a conversation with your partner to say, listen, I am uncomfortable. Is there a way that we can make it better? Or if we can perhaps, ease this for the two of us, that would, I would definitely bring it up.
Jazakallah khair for that answer. So yeah, that wraps up the questions. So before I hand it back to Muntaha, I'll just flash some contact information here. So this is Sister Hina's Instagram. MashaAllah, a lot of great information on here. So we encourage you to follow it at Hina Mirza, one word. And then also her website, hinamirza.ca. And I think there's also a marriage retreat coming up. So as I display this on the screen, maybe if you just want to talk over this and tell us what that's all about.
Absolutely. So I'm actually really excited to talk about it. It's actually in collaboration with Happy Strong Family. I do a lot of work here. I love coming. I love the team. I love speaking at all of their events. And mashallah, they're the ones who actually did the marriage mindset workshop too. This is the next step up. Okay. This is the next level to all events, marriage events that have ever happened in the GTA. Mm-hmm. I've been working on putting it together for the past 2 years. So a lot of labor of love has gone into this. I've taken cues from sessions that I've had. I've taken a lot of learning from books that I've read, seminars that I've attended, and my own knowledge and understanding of marriage. And I've put this day retreat together. It's going to be held at a 5-star resort at Niagara-on-the-Lake, and it's from 10 in the morning till 6 in the evening. It's the first of many events that, inshallah, that we're going to be able to do for couples. But the idea behind this retreat is to take a day with your spouse and almost tune up the relationship. Mm-hmm. I've made it fun. If anybody's ever heard me speaking, I like to keep it light. I like to keep it fun. It's not going to be lecture format. So it's not like you're attending a class and taking notes. No, that's not what I'm about. It's interactive. There's a lot of prompts that we're going to do. There's a lot of learning that you're going to walk away with, not just about yourself, but about your relationship. And then we're going to create a vision for the relationship's future, how things are going to go. What are the next steps going to look like? What are the things that you guys need to do more of? What should you be doing less of? And the best part is, inshallah, that you're going to be surrounded with like-minded people who are there for the exact same reason. And inshallah, I'm super excited. It's on July 22nd. We've got exactly 7 spots left at its max. Okay, at its max, because I know that there's been a lot of talk about, well, just add more tables or add more people. No, that again, it's about quality. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking to get 1,000 people in the room. That's not what this is. It's not that kind of event. Yeah. I want it to be an intimate experience. I want it to be a close experience for the couples that attend, and I want them to walk away with a completely refreshed mindset when it comes to their relationship. So very, very excited. It's going to be at the end of the month. Inshallah, registrations, if there is availability, please check it out on the website. Registrations do come in very, very regularly, but we have spots. As of today, we have a couple of spots left, and I would absolutely be thrilled to have anybody join me from our audience today. And I can promise you, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, may Allah grant us all success. You're not going to be disappointed. It's going to be a fun day.
Inshallah. I completely agree. When I went to your marriage mindset, it was so beautiful, and I like the fact that we weren't taking notes. It was very interactive,
Yeah.
and it was just like a very good environment to learn and be educated with other people. And I like the intimate
Yeah.
nature of how this resort retreat is going to be.
Yeah,
So,
no,
yeah,
absolutely.
so
And so,
exciting.
as I said, lots of breakout sessions. You
Mhm.
know, well, let me actually answer a couple of things, because I have a lot of people ask me, are we going to have to talk about our personal problems in front of people? No, that's against Islamic etiquette. I
Yeah.
would never design anything where you would have to air your dirty laundry. You're not going to be publicly displaying anything or discussing anything. This is about understanding you and your partner. So lots of opportunities to do breakouts with your own partner and have those conversations, individual reflection time, and then collective. So I'm going to get the guys on one team and the girls on one team. And it's actually going to make it a fun game where they're going to be answering some questions and then seeing whether they got answers right or wrong. Again, as I said, I am really hoping to over deliver on this one. It's unlike any event that's happened so far for couples.
awesome.
So inshallah, we
Inshallah.
have a great turnout, and we also have, everybody who walks away from it benefits.
Inshallah, that
So
sounds
July
great.
22nd, potentially you're watching this after July 22nd, 2023. If you are, follow her on Instagram, inshallah. Like you
Yeah.
said, this
Should
is the
I-
first of many, inshallah.
Absolutely. Yes. I actually, if you are watching this after July 22nd, we actually do a lot of work, Happy Strong Family and I.
Yeah.
We have a marriage course that is just about finished, and the pre-marriage course that I was talking about that is applicable to any couple who is about to get married, recently married. And sure, if you've been married for a while, it doesn't hurt if you're in that growth mindset to check that out. There's that coming up. There's lots of on-site events that we're doing. And inshallah, follow me on Instagram at Hina Mirza. Follow Happy Strong Family on Instagram. We do a lot of work together, and you'll be well aware. So any event that's coming up, and inshallah, the plan is to make the retreat an annual thing. So if you've missed this one, then inshallah, there's lots more to come.
Totally not missing it.
He's like, I'm not missing
I'm
it.
not.
Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah, we'll see. Yeah.
Okay, that's it for the questions. Munta, I'll pass it back to you to
Yeah.
inshallah wrap it up.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Hina Mirza. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to ask you if there's one takeaway you can give to the audience, what would that be?
Well, let me wrap up by saying Jazakallah khair for having me. It's always a pleasure. I always feel at home, even though my home is very far from Markham, but I always feel at home coming here, and the warmth that the team has always given me has just absolutely been a beautiful experience. So Jazakallah khair. And also for giving me the opportunity to talk about something that I'm passionate about, because I know that, mashallah, in the sea of information out there, we all have to pick the pearls that matter to us the
Yeah.
most. And inshallah, my lane is marriage, specifically, creating healthy, happy marriages for Muslims. My one takeaway for the day is always going to be educate yourself on your relationship. Don't put it on the back burner. Continuously invest in things like courses, books, videos, and retreats. Go invest in your relationship, because inshallah, if you keep your marriage healthy, the benefit, it's like that circle that just grows. The benefits just grow. Your children benefit, your parents, your siblings, your community, everybody benefits. But just like that, a marriage that goes stale or a marriage that gets broken or is bad, again, that negative circle impacts everybody. So bi'idhnillah, inshallah, all you guys out there, get help for yourselves when you need it.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. All right, we are signing off. See you inshallah
Assalamu
next
alaikum.
week. Assalamu alaikum.